There's never been enough housing in the Netherlands since the war. There's now a housing crisis, but it was still there it was already there when I was born.
Yeah.
When I wanted to get married, there was no house in Amsterdam.
Why Amsterdam was so important? Let's check that, and then we can go to your experience growing up as a teenager or later phases also. But let's start with why Amsterdam was so important.
Now, I think because Amsterdam was the center of the world.
That's how they say
in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in my opinion.
So Mariamartha, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah.
I can find the right words.
Yeah. Before we start, would love to hear who are you, your background.
So I'm Mariamartha.
Yeah.
And I was born in Amsterdam and bred in Amsterdam. It was just 2 years after the war when I was born, and my parents couldn't buy anything except what was available by changing coupons.
Okay.
There was no money.
And which year are we talking?
47 until
1940.
1950 at least, and maybe also a few months or years after that. But those first 3 years of my life was still very hard.
Yeah. Where in Amsterdam exactly? If a lot of people, I think, as a tourist also visit. If my audience is from India, if they're listening, maybe you have been to the canals.
Yeah. Now I didn't live in the center of the city, but just outside the center, which we called Oud-West. So the west of Amsterdam, but the old part.
Okay.
We also have New West.
New West now, yeah.
And New West is outside the Dijks. There
Okay.
was a dike built around Amsterdam in
Yeah.
my youth.
Yeah.
No, it was before that, but in my youth, when I was 5 years old, I sat on the dike and I watched those new neighborhoods being built. And now Amsterdam has grown.
Yeah, it's a very different city
Enormously.
probably.
Little villages are now part of the city.
So if I have to go back a little bit, so if I have to start from the central and like draw circles.
Yeah.
So the Oud West comes first if I grow in the circles, and the New West comes later.
Yeah.
So it's more inside still.
We could walk to the center of the city. There was also a bus later, but yeah. And we lived in a very small apartment, a pre-war apartment. But I was born in a room, an attic room.
Okay.
My parents moved to Amsterdam not long before I was born, before my father got a job there. And there were no houses, no apartments.
And where was he from?
Lots was destroyed. My father came from Beverwijk, which was a little town in North Holland, just north of Amsterdam. My mother came from Bloemendaal, Zandpoort, Bloemendaal, which is a little more south, but still north of Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And so they were able to rent a room in a house of a family.
Okay.
And that was very crowded. Of course, they had one room and a little space for a kitchen. Okay. So I slept there with my parents, and I still remember it. So we went to this little pre-war apartment when I was 3 years old, and it still was very, very small. But anyway, I was brought up in a very crowded area.
And how was it back then? Like. Of course, like you're mentioning the story, just after the war, it was very hard to get the food items and stuff, and you would be given coupons, or clothes even, and the coupons were given by the government. Yeah. And how was that distribution? Was it like some kind of ration system?
Ration system, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So one family, one child got so many coupons, and the more people in the family, the more coupons they got.
Was there any corruption as well, or people who like to cheat?
That people sold them, perhaps. I don't know exactly, but there are many stories to be found about that, yes.
And I think it's usually seen across the world, like whenever there is a crisis, these things tend to be there, you know, like these things do come as a part of survival, I guess, right?
I think so.
And another thing is, when there is a crisis, people do come together as well. So there are like both sides, and I think we as humans tend to find that balance, where someone from that community would try to, some of them would try to cheat, and some would be trying to build that, you know, to more powerful.
It's the way people are.
And I think it keeps repeating.
Always.
Yeah. Why Amsterdam was so important? Let's check that, and then we can go to your experience growing up as a teenager or later phases also, and Amsterdam. But let's start with why Amsterdam was so important.
Now, I think because Amsterdam was the center of the world.
That's how they say
in the Netherlands.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, in my opinion, and the rest was the province, you know. And I didn't. When I was 18, I didn't think I would ever leave Amsterdam because what was the rest of the Netherlands? Nothing.
Nothing.
I thought, but it was very.
But how would you know? How was the travel? Let's say, it's like if you have to get out of Amsterdam to travel to other cities, let's say even to Utrecht or.
By bus or by train.
Okay.
Yeah, there were trains. At first there were locomotives, you know, these steam engines. When I was very young, they still were, and there were train wagons from before the war, and also trams in Amsterdam.
Okay.
There were everywhere there were tram rails, so we went from one part of the city to another with tram.
Okay.
Later there came buses. Yeah.
Okay.
And also buses from Amsterdam to other places. And we all came through our street. It became busier and busier.
Okay.
Yeah, but Amsterdam was nice and quiet. So in the 50s, and then people started to earn more money. So they started to buy cars, and then the end of the 60s they started to buy televisions. And I don't think it was a good development, not in every respect. But,
definitely brings a lot of luxury, but with that it also brings some of the negatives, which a lot of people don't like.
It was very nice to have an automatic washing machine. When my mother had to wash everything by hand, we had a big tub, and the dirty washing went in there with soda and water, and it was put on the fire, and then she had to do it by hand. Or we had a wringer, we called it, and you put the laundry between two rolls, and you had to turn them.
Okay, manually, like mechanical. Yeah, okay. I can imagine something like that.
It was hard work.
Yeah.
So we were very happy that the first washing machine was installed in our little apartment.
Yeah. And how was the scene of with the electricity?
In that apartment there was electricity and gas.
Okay.
To cook, we had gas and electricity for light and so on.
Okay. And how, so for example, right now, these things are very normal, you know, for anyone to have, like these are actually called basic necessities.
But we had no television, not until I went, I was independent and went to live on my own.
Yeah.
And we had no telephone in the house. When we wanted to call someone, we had those boxes in the street.
The booths.
Booths, yeah. And we had to put in a coin and then you could call someone. And when someone wanted to call us, they had a number of the cigar shop opposite our house, and the lady would come to us and warn us, oh, it's a call for you.
But beautiful, like in a way it is definitely slow, could be very tedious for a lot of people who think in the current times.
Yeah, it was more relaxed, I think.
Relaxed, and I think people at least having an excuse to interact more with each other and spend more time.
Definitely.
No TV, no telephone. I think people were probably spending a lot of time outdoors or in the living room, families.
We went out to make walks. Near Amsterdam there was, before the war, there was a crisis, a financial crisis. Worldwide, and they had a project to make work for people who had no job, who had lost their jobs, and it was called Bosplan, and they had to plant trees and to make a wood, and that wood was was grown after the war, of course, so we could walk there and play there and sit there near water and be out of the house, because there was an apartment, there was no sunshine in the apartment. So when it was nice weather, we couldn't go out on a balcony or a garden, so we had to take our bicycles and cycle out of town to get some nature. There's never been enough housing in the Netherlands since the war. There's now a housing crisis, but it was still there it was already there when I was born. Yeah. When I wanted to get married, there was no house in Amsterdam. And then outside Amsterdam, the villages or places like Purmerend, Hoorn, Enkhuizen, they make these suburbs. And people from Amsterdam moved there, and that's how I got my first house.
Okay.
And we started in Middenbeemster, which is a very pretty little village, but I didn't mind having lived there. I loved it. I was very lonely because I didn't know anyone.
You're disconnected from the center as well. And sometimes you get that sense of being stuck.
Yeah.
If you are too much living in a suburb, especially if you were living in the central of the city, you just miss that speed or that vibe basically.
And the availability of everything, of social contact, of being able to do sport or being able to study.
Libraries, maybe.
Libraries, yeah. Now, there was a library. There was a bus.
Okay.
And every 2 weeks a bus came in our street.
That's very smart.
And then you could order books, and there were also rows of books, and you could choose from them. And but it was not like here in Den Bosch or in Amsterdam.
Yeah, yeah.
I was very lonely there.
Okay.
And now, when I go back to that village, oh, it's so pretty, and I think, why did I leave there?
Would you like to spell it for me? Or
Middenbeemster.
Middenbeemster.
Beemster is 2 E's.
Oh,
and it's one word.
Oh yeah, okay.
Middenbeemster. But the Beemster is a polder.
Okay.
Which was used to be water, and in the, I think, 18th century.
Yeah.
But you can look that up.
Yeah, but polder is also similar to a trench.
No, a trench is een sloot.
Okay, okay.
Nee, dat zijn de kanalen bijvoorbeeld,
de
sloten. Maar een polder is land that was taken from the water.
Okay,
they took the water out by windmills and things like that.
So maybe I will just try to simplify and explain it, and maybe you can correct it if so trenches are built to get the water out of the land, and when the land that you acquire after removing the water, that's called a polder.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Clear. So Almere, for example, or Flevoland is very much of a polder, if you have to explain it to someone.
Noordoostpolder heb je, Flevoland, and de Beemster is one of them. Is one of the first, I think. Okay. Yeah. Wieringenmeer was het eerst.
Yeah.
And Almere is also a town, a very big town now, that was gained, do we say that correctly, from the water?
Yeah. We were talking about the polders, and it has a lot of significance for Amsterdam and for Netherlands in general.
As a whole, yes.
Yeah. And I learned by reading that there was a time when there were early settlements of Dutch people in this place called Netherlands, and it was basically a swampy land and a lot of water, which you can imagine very soggy, if I have to describe it, very swampy and maybe not, like very difficult to live on, I think. And then historically what happened by great efforts and you can say like perseverance or the grit probably that what Dutch people had, they started thinking in some ways to survive, and in that survival I think came the innovation.
Windmills.
Windmills as well.
There.
Yeah. What I was reading was that they were able to get the water out by building the trenches, and so they get the land out of it. And when this knowledge was shared, like in a bigger part of Netherlands, a lot of people started getting land, and it was distributed among the community. And this sense of owning a land resulted in a sense of entrepreneurship as well. And then as the people were very familiar and they started getting more and more near the water, familiar with the water, they started exploring out, because it's just next to the North Sea, this whole country. And that's where the whole thing about trading, exploring the world, sea routes.
Now, I think because it's such a small country, we don't have anything
inside
from ourselves. Yeah. So we had
to get
large ships, VOC, went to India, Indonesia, Indonesia now, to America, to import and export goods.
Exactly.
Like Spain also did, of course.
Yeah. So I think it came out of this necessity for survival.
Yeah.
That's always like the theme everywhere in the world. You see, like whenever there is a thing about survival, people come together and innovate and bring out ways, which can help them. Similar was the Dutch. and they built trading routes, and then like the country started becoming prosperous. And I also learned that was the instance when a lot of neighboring countries in Europe started getting jealous also of Netherlands, and that's where there was a moment where Spain actually invaded Netherlands, and there was a 80-year-long war, and it started, I think, in the south of Netherlands, near Antwerp. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Now, Antwerp was one Netherlands, eh?
Yeah, it was one Netherlands. That's right.
1800, so
Yeah.
much. They were separated into Belgium and the Netherlands, and I'm not quite sure about the origin of the Spanish War. Not anymore. Forgot.
Okay.
But there's still. You here in Brabant, you can see there were Spanish. The Spanish were here.
Yeah.
Real Brabant people, they have often a very dark exterior, and sometimes you can still see, oh, they have Spanish origin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Because the people mingled, of course.
Yeah, I think I was many years back taking a tour in Maastricht as well, and there was a mention about the mixing of French soldiers, for instance. So things.
Yeah, we were at Napoleon.
Yeah.
We were also invaded by Napoleon.
Yeah.
He started verschijnsel, hoe zeg je dat? Nou, the surnames.
The last
everyone
noun.
had to choose a name,
Yeah.
and very many people took their profession as a surname. Me, Bakker, he was a baker, or a place name where they originated from.
Which year are we talking about? Like, you remember?
No, it was in Napoleon times.
Yeah.
1700 so and
It's
so, or
something,
1800 around that time.
Yeah.
My name, for instance, is Wijnkoop.
Yeah.
Wijnkoop. And there's a Jewish, you have two branches of Wijnkoops in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
For instance, particularly in Amsterdam, there was a Jewish Wijnkoop family.
Okay.
And in North Holland, where my family originates, was a Wijnkoop, were Roman Catholics. But both, they came from Germany and more Eastern ways. And
Okay.
I don't know exactly. But they were traders.
The Jewish people you're mentioning.
The Wijnkoops originally were traders in general.
Okay.
And what they sold was wine. And koop is a contract.
Okay.
So they made contracts of the wine selling or buying. And that was called een wijnkoop.
Okay.
So there were practical names. So what do? That's what you were called.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Not always, because you always have people that were named after the places where they lived.
Yeah, also.
Yeah.
I was also reading about this, that a lot of people try to revolt this and pick up some weird names.
Oh yeah.
So that's another thing.
Yeah. My first husband, his name was De Dood.
Okay, what does it mean?
That's a noun.
Dead.
Dead. The dead. The dode.
Yeah, the dead.
The dead person. De Dood.
Yeah.
He was called. And after our marriage, his second wife didn't want to be called like that, so he changed his name.
Yeah.
But my first married name was De Dood.
Okay.
That was one of those strange names.
But do you know, like, why was it enforced to have the surnames or last names, like?
Because people were more easily to detect.
Recognized.
Yeah, to recognize, for administration.
Makes sense.
To control them. It's all to do with power. May I take a sip?
Yeah, please. Okay, that's really interesting. And if we have to talk about, so we keep going back and forth, like understanding about you, Amsterdam, and again, because it's revolving around it, so we have to go in that format. We cannot keep it robotic, so that's how the conversations are, like less robotic, more human.